When he discovers that his universe is about to collapse, a young man and his dragon are sent to the human world with the mission of finding the only person capable of changing the fate of Upananda. Today we're going to recap the story of the series, Dragons of Wonderhatch, from 2023. Nagi is a high school teenager who dreams of a magical floating world where she can fly, but every time she wakes up she has to face her reality. One day, during class, she faints and is rushed to the infirmary. Meanwhile, in the world of dragons, another island begins to fall towards the sky and, in order to prevent Upananda from being destroyed, Aktha and his friends must defeat Hyro. However, at the moment, their most urgent mission is to rescue the people who have been trapped on this island, and the group is counting on the help of their dragons to make the rescue. After entering the cloud, Aktha and his friends have to face a huge storm, and the young man flies to the temple to rescue one of the victims. After removing all the survivors from the island, the group flies to the rescue ship and Aktha reveals that he has discovered the trigger for Pythonpit to appear. The next day, when the sun and moon align, this island will appear and the dragon riders will have the chance to duel Hyro. Suddenly, Aktha misses one of his team members and goes off to look for him. At that moment, Time is on another island trying to rescue a family of owls who refuse to leave their home. Then, when the island is destroyed, they are all swept away by the storm, but Aktha appears and manages to rescue his friend and the owls. When she wakes up, Nagi is advised by the school nurse to go to the doctor for some tests, as her faintings lately have been recurring. As she walks back to her classroom, the girl hears her classmates whispering about her and Mame accompanies her to make sure nothing bad happens to his friend. That afternoon, the pair walk back home and Nagi tells him that she always has the same dream, in which she is falling towards the sky. After class, the young woman goes to visit her father and asks what symptoms her mother had before she perished. The man then says that his wife used to see and hear things that didn't exist, and that Hannah used to dream that she was falling and would often faint. At the time, the woman said that she saw a whole universe open up right in front of her and ideas started popping into her head. Since then, she has been drawing the stories and characters of the world she decided to call Dragons of Wonderhatch. After saying that name, Hannah fainted and had to be taken to hospital. When she returned home, it was as if her mind had been transported to a fantasy world. Stunned, the woman decided to leave home and Nagi was raised exclusively by her father. In an attempt to find a solution to prevent Upananda from being destroyed by Hyro, Bavrashian, a representative of the Senate, goes to talk to Sarah and asks for her help. The woman then says that, within a year, that world will be in pieces. According to her, the only way to avoid this is to go to Pythonpit. In an attempt to uncover the mystery behind the collapse of the Dobricious and Huihat Islands, Aktha decides to go after Hyro and, together with his team, waits for the moment of the solar eclipse. After the alignment of these stars, Pythonpit, also known as the Island of God, appears and, soon after, Hyro arrives in the company of his dragon. Immediately, the dragon riders face the enemy in battle and unite to attack him. Meanwhile, Time and Goofin protect the ship and watch the duel from afar. However, when they see Aktha about to be eliminated, the pair decide to take part in the battle and the whole team is shocked to see their leader creating a cloud of fire around him. Aktha's plan is to surround the enemy so that he can neither escape nor harm his companions. However, Hyro is stronger than he thought, so when the cloud is destroyed, Time decides to act and shoots an arrow at the monster. Despite not being able to get a scratch on his opponent, the young man becomes his new target and Hyro fires a bubble at him. Realizing that his friend is in danger, Aktha quickly flies towards him and tries to pierce the bubble, but ends up getting trapped inside it. When the bubble bursts, the young man disappears and his body is replaced by countless manga. Immediately, Keith goes to Time's rescue and the group decides to run away from Hyro. That night, the group is dejected and blames Time for the perishment of their leader. However, the young man is convinced that Aktha is alive somewhere. Heartbroken, Keith says goodbye to Igru and the dragon leaves. The rest of the team then goes their separate ways and Time stays behind. What none of them realize is that their leader has been sent to another universe and now lives on Earth among the humans. 10 years earlier, another warrior faced Hyro in battle and met the same end as Aktha. After being engulfed by a large bubble, Soup's body disappeared and, on that day, the first island of Upananda was destroyed by the enemy. In an attempt to find out where his friend has been sent, Time takes the manga to Sarah and the woman presents him with her valuable collection of objects from the outside world. According to Sarah, that book contains the laws of some tribe that lives in this other world, so they need to decipher what is written there. A few months later, with Time's help, Sarah manages to learn the meanings of those symbols, but finds no instructions on how to reach the human world. So the woman says that the only way for Time to find his leader is to be transported by Hyro's bubble. Meanwhile, Aktha is using his gift of hearing thoughts to earn money and survive on Earth. In his spare time, the warrior works as a superhero and helps the police fight crime. However, his methods are often very aggressive and quite questionable. After Aktha eliminates an entire gang to save a victim who had been captured, he ends up being arrested and Kana, his lawyer, manages to cut a deal to free him. The woman then takes him to her office and asks him to tell her all the details of his story so that she can defend him in court. Even knowing that Kana won't believe what he has to say, Aktha decides to tell the truth and reveals that he came from another world called Upananta. A few days later, when the next solar eclipse takes place, Time and Gufin await Hyro's arrival and fly out to meet him. The pair then wait for their enemy's attack and enter the big bubble he has launched. Meanwhile, Nagi pays a visit to her mother's old room and finds all the drawings and stories she wrote. As she removes the carpet, the girl comes across a beautiful painting on the floor and, as she looks at the beautiful work of art, she feels an earthquake. Suddenly, Time and Gufin appear and the young man tries to communicate with Nagi, but the girl can't understand him. Just then, the book written by Hannah is sent to Upananta and ends up in Sarah's hands. Frightened, Nagi runs away from Time and Gufin and calls her friend, Mame, to help her face the two strangers. When he comes across the dragon sleeping in his room, Mame tries to capture it, but ends up being caught by Time, who uses a net to trap them. However, when he hears the humans talking, the young man realizes that they speak the same language that he learned from the manga and asks them if they know Aktha. Seeing the picture of the young man, Nagi realizes that Aktha is the character her mother drew and decides to help Time find him. In Upananta, Keith visits Sarah to ask for her help, as half of the islands have already been destroyed. So the wise woman asks the warrior to take her to Hyro, as she also wants to go to Earth. In an attempt to locate Aktha, Mame goes on social media and looks for a guy with red hair who has the characteristics described by Time, but he can't find him. However, the next morning, he receives a message from a person who claims to know Aktha and they arrange to meet at a certain place. When they get there, the trio realizes that the place looks like a dungeon made of garbage and Mame is afraid that they have fallen into a trap. Even so, they decide to enter the garage and then the gate closes. Finally, Kazutaka decides to speak up and claims to be a big fan of Aktha. Knowing that his idol is a lonely man, he claims that Time is lying about being his friend and decides to imprison the trio. However, while the man is playing his video game, Gufin destroys the blocks of pressed garbage that are blocking the exit and, after freeing themselves, Time and his new friends go after Kazutaka. After being tied up, the young man asks for forgiveness for what he has done and reveals Aktha's whereabouts. The next morning, the three youngsters say goodbye to Gufin and Time asks the dragon to stay hidden in the house while they go to find Aktha. The warrior of Upananta now lives hidden away on an island, so Nagi and Mame accompany Time there. When they arrive on the island, they spot a group of people fishing illegally and decide to follow them. After crossing the cave, the youngsters come across a small village and, a few minutes later, Time spots their leader. When the two friends finally meet, Aktha is not happy to see him and says that he has tried several times to return to Upananta, but it is an impossible mission. In an attempt to renew hope in his friend's heart, Time says that they can make it back if they work together, but Aktha prefers to continue living on Earth with the humans. The former warrior says that only now does he feel he can be who he really is and has found new friends he wants to protect. After his lawyer was captured, Aktha managed to find her and eliminated an entire gang to save the woman. After the chaos, he was sentenced to 2 years in prison and, while he was in court, he could hear the voices of the audience judging him. However, as he listened to the thoughts of those people, Aktha realized that some of them were on his side and supported him. Then, after being freed, the man gathered this select group of people and, together with them, moved to that island. His goal now is to populate that place and, alongside his pregnant partner, build a paradise where everyone can be happy. When he learns that Aktha will soon become a father, Time tries to make him remember everything his friend left behind and the warrior asks him how he intends to return home. Like Aktha, Time doesn't know how to do this either and is advised to accept the fact that Earth is his home now. However, the young man is insistent and keeps thinking of a way to convince Aktha to return to Upananta with him. So he challenges him to a duel and, if Aktha loses the fight, he must help him find a way back home. When the start of the battle is announced, Time attacks his opponent with his arrows, but Aktha uses a piece of wood to block the attack and knocks his opponent down with a single punch. Even though he knows he has no chance, the young man refuses to give up and keeps trying to hit the leader of the dragon riders with one of his arrows. Furious at the young man's insistence, Aktha prepares to deliver the final blow, but stops the attack before it hits Time and orders him to leave. When the trio return home, Gufin tries to console his friend, but Time is deeply saddened and spends the whole night crying. A few hours later, someone rings the intercom and Nagi opens the door. Just then, a dog appears and enters the house. When he sees Time, the animal leaves and the young man says that he also needs to go his own way. He intends to return to Upananta and help save his world. Even though he doesn't know how he will achieve this goal, Time decides to keep trying until he succeeds and says that dragon riders never give up. Nagi asks the young man to stay and promises that she will help him find a way back home. Meanwhile, Shibata is outside the house, having been watching Time since the day he arrived on Earth. The next morning, while looking up at the sky, Time notices that the liquid inside his necklace has begun to expand and wonders if he can use it to return home. The young man explains that the substance is called Lido and is a very valuable resource in his world. According to him, Lido has two main purposes. The first is to make things glow and the second is to make objects float. Using his flute, the young man is able to control the floating objects and Nagi asks permission to ride on Gufin's back. In the company of Time, she manages to fly above the clouds and is thrilled to remember her dream. Over the next few days, the trio carry out various experiments with the fluid in order to discover how the substance reacts to heat and extreme temperatures. One afternoon, when the three friends arrive at Nagi's house, they run into the girl's father and she introduces Time as her classmate. The man then invites the three young people to dinner and Mame teaches Time how to fold the gyoza dough. At this point, Nagi realizes that she has run out of vinegar and asks Time to accompany her to the supermarket. When he enters the store, the young man comes across Shibata and realizes that he has a bottle full of Lido. By manipulating the substance, the man manages to make all the lights in the store go out and advises Time not to show that golden liquid to humans. Suddenly, the lights come back on and Shibata arranges to meet Time the next morning to show him how to get home. After dinner, the young man returns to his hiding place and spends the whole night reading the stories that Hannah has written about Upananda. In the morning, Nagi pays a visit to her friend and discovers that he has gone away. To prevent Gufin from being seen by the humans, Time hides the dragon in a wastebin and goes to the supermarket where he found Shibata the night before. While waiting for the young man to return home, Mame and Nagi continue their experiments and make a new discovery, which they are eager to share with Time. In a conversation with Shibata, Time learns that he plans to rule that world because he finds humans repulsive. The man was sent to Earth 10 years ago and has hated people ever since. Upon hearing this, the young man realizes that he is facing Soups, the last knight who faced Hiro before the villain began to destroy Upananta. While looking for Time in his hideout, Nagi and Mame witness another earthquake and soon afterwards Sarah appears. Isolated on his island, Aktha also begins his plan to build a paradise far from human civilization. He then uses a wind instrument to control the Lido that is spread all over the island and make it float. After hitching a ride with Keith's dragon and meeting Hiro, Sarah orders her to leave, but the young woman decides to hide to watch the battle. To his surprise, instead of dueling the enemy, Sarah introduces herself as Soup's daughter and asks Hiro to send her to Earth. Not long ago, the woman discovered that the creator of Upananta lives in the human world and, because of her, that universe is being destroyed. According to his brother, Hannah is the one who decides everything that happens in that world, but Sarah and her father didn't believe Maur's words and accused him of supporting a pagan group that spreads lies about Upananta. Determined to go to the world of the creator, the young man, along with the other members of his sect, jumped off a cliff, leaving his family members completely stunned. However, on the day her father disappeared, Sarah discovered that the human world really exists and now she intends to go after the creator. Upon hearing this story, Hiro refuses to help her, so Sarah transforms the Melpons into a monstrous creature to attack Bonds and make him release his bubble. After talking to Shibata, Time discovers that other warriors who disappeared from Upananta have also been sent to Earth and have joined forces to take over the planet. When she meets Nagi, Sarah asks for the girl's help to find Hannah, and the young woman discovers that, for all these years, her mother has always been alive. Shibata also knows about the existence of the creator and blames her for bringing Upananta to ruin. Therefore, the man says that they need to eliminate Hannah to save their world. Realizing that Nagi really doesn't know where her mother is, Sarah decides to talk to the girl's father and asks Taichi where Hannah is hiding. However, the man continues to deny that his wife is alive and, in the middle of the argument, Nagi ends up fainting. When she wakes up, the girl hugs her father and reveals that she always knew her mother was alive, but preferred to believe she was eliminated in order to protect herself. That night, Time shows up and is astonished to see Sarah. The young man asks if Upananta has been saved and learns that her world is on the verge of collapse. When he finds out that the group is going to meet Hannah, Time decides to join them again and asks Gufin to transmit their location to Soups. After the battle against the Melpons, Hiro and his dragon are exhausted, so Keith takes the opportunity to attack them. After striking down her enemy, the warrior discovers that she won't be able to stop her world from collapsing even if she eliminates him. Hiro explains that 10 years ago, before battling Soups, the two were friends and together they had access to a sphere of light called Kotori. By touching it, they had access to some flashes of the future and discovered that Upananta would be destroyed by its own creator. At that moment, Soups realized that his son was right and tried to steal Kotori's power in order to eliminate Hana. However, Hiro managed to stop him and the two began a duel with the support of their dragons. Determined to ensure that the creator's will was done, Hiro sent Soups to the human world and, since then, he and Bonds have taken on the responsibility of protecting Kotori. Meanwhile, on Earth, Taichi takes Nagi and his friends to find Hana, who is in a psychiatric hospital. When she meets her mother after so many years, the girl is surprised to see her in a wheelchair and Taichi reveals that the woman has been in a vegetative state for all this time. At this point, Time feels guilty for having revealed Hana's location to Soups, as the woman is in no condition to harm anyone. While waiting in the waiting room, the young man asks Sarah if Upananta will be saved when the creator perishes and the young woman says no. Suddenly, the hospital lights start flashing and Time realizes that Soups is coming. Minutes later, the man enters Hana's room and intends to attack the woman in front of her family. However, before he could use the golden fluid to eliminate her, Sarah contaminates him with her antiparticles and throws her father against the wall. Time quickly helps Nagi escape with her parents while Sarah stays behind to stop Soups. The group then manages to escape and Nagi wonders if her mother will be like this forever. Then Taichi reveals that he has already taken his wife to several doctors and none of them have been able to determine the cause of her illness. During a conversation with Time, Sarah says that she needs to find Aktha, because only he will be able to stop Soups. Just then, Taichi approaches and reveals that he has a boat that can be used to take them to Tsurushima Island. In the morning, before getting on the boat, Time decides to tell Nagi the truth and says that he was the one who gave Soups Hana's location. Disappointed, the young woman gets on the boat and spends the entire journey without speaking to her friend. When the group reaches their destination, they realize that the island has begun to float and continue their journey in search of Aktha. When Gufen meets him, Sarah introduces herself and asks for the warriors' help to stop her father's evil plan to rule humanity. However, Aktha refuses to interfere in this and is not even willing to help Hana, as he says that his commitment is exclusively to protect the people he has taken to live with him on that island. As it's already getting dark, Taichi asks permission for his group to spend the night there and Aktha allows them to use some empty huts to rest. Just then, Kana appears and accompanies her husband to the edge, where the rest of the island's inhabitants are gathered. Contrary to what Aktha imagined, his people were not happy about this news, because now they don't have the option of leaving the island if they want to. The phenomenon attracts the attention of the media and reporters announce the floating island on all the news programs in Japan. At this point, Soups is informed that the creator is on the island and begins to plan a way to get there. After avoiding her friend for a few hours, Nagi feels sorry for herself and decides to go and talk to Time. Then Mame offers to accompany her and they both go after the young man. The dragon rider is close to the edge when Soups and his men arrive on the island looking for Hana. At this point, Nagi and Mame see their friend trying to stop Soups from hurting the creator and the man says that if nothing happens when the woman is eliminated, he will eliminate Nagi, as he believes the girl has inherited the gift from her mother. Upon hearing this, Time becomes furious and says that anyone who hurts Nagi will become his enemy. When he tries to attack Soups, the young man is hit, but keeps trying to stop him and ends up being knocked down several times. While Mame goes to ask for help, Nagi remains in hiding and is heartbroken to see her friend sacrificing himself to try to protect her. Even though she knows her life is in danger, the young woman decides to act and runs to meet Time. She is about to be captured by Soups' gang when Sarah appears and uses anti-particle bombs to attack them. Meanwhile, Nagi and Mame help their friend escape. While the trio are hiding, Time apologizes once again and they make up. After rescuing Hana, the youngsters find Taichi and Sarah, who are being chased by Soups. The family quickly flees while Time and Sarah try to defeat their enemies. During the battle, Soups throws a spear at the creator and, to save her mother, Nagi uses her own body as a shield. At that moment, the young woman is hit and her abdomen is destroyed. So